Hello everyone, I am Teacher Svet, and for today, we will talk about factoring difference of two squares. The product of sum and difference of two numbers is the factor of difference of two squares. So take note of the difference. It means that the operation is subtraction. And then the given two terms are perfect squares. So it is in the form a squared minus b squared. So the two terms are both perfect squares, and then the operation is subtraction. So the factored form of this difference of two squares is the product of sum and difference of two numbers. So the factored form of these two terms is the quantity of a plus b times the quantity of a minus b. To better understand this topic, let's find the square root of the following numbers. What is the square root of 4? Yes, the square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. And then, what is the square root of 25? The square root of 25 is 5. And then, what is the square root of 100? The square root of 100 is 10. What is the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is 4. Now, what is the square root of 49? The square root of 49 is 7. What is the square root of 8 raised to 4? So, we have now a variable. In terms of variable, with exponent, divide lang natin yung exponent by 2. So, what is the square root of a raised to 4? Divide 4 by 2. And that is equal to a squared. Because a squared times a squared is a raised to 4. And then, we have the square root of x raised to 10. So, we have x, divide lang natin yung 10 by 2, that is equal to 5. So, the square root of x raised to 10 is x raised to 5. Next, we have x raised to 4, z raised to 6. Let's get the square root of this monomial. We have the same process, divide 4 by 2 and divide 6 by 2. So the square root of x raised to 4 and z raised to 6 is x squared z cubed. Next is the factoring difference of two squares. So let's have the first example. Ano ba natin i-factor completely yung a squared minus 16? Our first step is to find all the square root of each term. So, ano yung square root ng a squared? Okay, the square root of a squared is a. And what is the square root of 16? Which is the second term. The square root of 16 is 4. Now, after getting the square root of the two terms, let us form these factors from square roots, one a sum and one a difference. Okay, so gagamitin lang natin itong a and 4 in the form sum and difference. So we have a plus 4 times the quantity of a minus 4. So this is already the factored form of a squared minus 16. Next example. First step is to find the square root of each term. So what is the square root of 144x squared? Yung square root ng 144 is 12. And yung square root ng x squared is x. For the second term, ano yung square root ng 49y raised to 4? The square root of 49 is 7. And the square root of y raised to 4, divide natin yung 4 by 2, that is y squared. Now, gagamitin natin tong 2 square roots na to na nakuha natin to form a sum and difference, the product of sum and difference. So, 12x plus 7y squared times the quantity of 12x minus 7y squared. A sum and difference of two terms. Okay, so let's have the next example. B squared minus 9. What is the square root of b squared? That is b. And the square root of 9 is 3. So let's use these terms, b and 3, to form a sum and difference. So the factored form of b squared minus 9 is the quantity of b plus 3 times the quantity of b minus 3. So ganun lang siya kadali. Next is 4x raised to 36 minus 16. So, tingnan natin ano ba yung square root ng 4x raised to 36. Alam natin that square root of 4 is 2. While in terms of the variable, i-divide lang natin yung exponent by 2. What is 36 divided by 2? Yes, that is 18. So, we have x raised to 18. So, eto na yung square root ng first term natin. How about the square root of the second term? We have the square root of 16 is 4. Let us use these results to form a sum and difference of two terms. So, etong dalawang to na nakuha natin, gagamitin lang natin, form a sum and difference. So, we have the quantity of 2x raised to 18 plus 4 times the quantity of 2x raised to 18 minus 4. So that's it. This is the factored form of the given expression. Next is 36y raised to 16 minus 25. So find the square root of 36y raised to 16. We all know that the square root of 36 is 6. The square root of y raised to 16, divide natin yung 16 by 2. That is y raised to 8. For the second term, the square root of 25. So the square root of 25 is 5. Let us use these square roots para makapag-form ng sum and difference of two terms. So we have the quantity of 6y raised to 8 plus 5 times the quantity of 6y raised to 8 minus 5. That is already the answer. Napakadali lang, di ba? Now it's time to answer this activity. So you try this activity, factor the following polynomials. Pause this video for you to answer this activity. For number 1, what is the factored form of 9a squared minus 4? So let us get the square root of each term. The square root of 9a squared is 3a. And the square root of 4 is 2. Now, susulat natin siya in the form sum and difference. Therefore, yung factored form ng 9a squared minus 4 is the quantity of 3a plus 2 times the quantity of 3a minus 2. Next, let's have number 2. What is the square root of 36b squared? So the square root of 36b squared is 6b. And what is the square root of 100c raised to 6 d raised to 4? So the square root of 100 is 10, while the square root of c raised to 6, i-divide lang yung exponent by 2, we have c cubed. And then d raised to 4, the square root of d raised to 4 is d squared. Okay? Form it by sum and difference. Okay, so the factored form of 36b squared minus 100c raised to 6 d raised to 4 is the quantity of 6b plus 10c cubed d squared times the quantity of 6b minus 10c cubed d squared. Let's have number 3. So for number 3, the square root of 16e raised to 6 is 4e raised to 3 or 4e cubed. Next is the second term. The square root of 25 f raised to 10 is 5 f raised to 5. So, i-form lang natin siya as sum and difference. So, now let's have number 4. So, the square root of 121g raised to 4 is 11g squared. And the square root of 36h raised to 6 is 6h cubed. Again, let's write it in the form sum and difference. Let's have number 5. So, the square root of 64 is 8. The square root of a raised to 6 is a cubed. Divide lang yung exponent by 2. The square root of b raised to 8 is b raised to 4. And the square root of c raised to 4 is c squared. For the second term, the square root of 81 is 9. And the square root of d raised to 12 is d raised to 6. The square root of e raised to 14 is e raised to 7. And the square root of f raised to 20 is f raised to 10. So, sulat lang natin yung operation na sum and difference. So, that's it. That is how to factor difference of two squares. Thank you for learning with me. I can't wait to have more learning adventure with you. So, see you next time for our next topic. Bye!